gameplay?
A whole lot. This demo that we're diving into right now is pretty massive. You could spend hours just in this area goofing around, fighting monsters. We're going to cut it down to about 10 to 15 minutes because we're on a time crunch, but we'll try to see as much as we possibly can.
Perfect. While she plays, you're going to do the talking?
I will do my best.
Okay. I like it. So I noticed that there are some monsters that you can run over, and then there's one that you can actually engage into, so that it's like a typical JRPG. How do you know which ones that you can actually fight?
It actually depends on what you're doing with the horse. If you're dashing with the horse, you'll barrel straight through the enemies. It'll allow you to just blast over them, get from point A to point B as fast as possible. But if you want to get into a battle, you slow down, you just run right into them, and then it goes into the more classic turn-based battle that you're so used to seeing.
Are there certain monsters that you can't dash through, like really big monsters?
Nailed it.
Okay.
That's perfect. You just see one monster, like, I'll just go, oh, no mistake.
Yeah.
Then again, you kind of need that too, because we just run around the entire time, you're not going to gain experience points. Right?
Exactly.
Next thing you know, you're fighting the monster that's under-leveled. And
Yeah, while barreling through the enemies is a whole lot of fun with the horse, you don't actually get any experience for it.
Extremely satisfying.
Okay. So it's more so if you're kind of just like, you know, some players like to get to like level 100, and some players just like to play the storyline. If you don't want to have to fight every monster, you just dash through it.
Exactly. And there are no random battles as you're roaming around the open fields. Whether you're on foot or on the horse, all the monsters are roaming around. You can see them. If you don't feel like grinding and you just want to get to the next story point, you can avoid the battles and move right on.
Are there monsters that aggro you?
Yes.
Okay.
And it totally depends on your level and the level of the monster. So if you roll into an area and all the monsters are much higher level, they'll come after you, they'll try to chase you down.
Okay.
But if you come back to that same area later on in the game and you're a much higher level, they'll start running away from you to get away.
you know, there's one feature I haven't seen too often lately in RPGs, which used to be a staple, is whenever a giant world event happens in a game, you return to a previous town and there are reactions. They say things that are different, or maybe even the town looks different. That's something I think Dragon Quest does a lot of. Is that going to happen here as well?
I don't want to spoil too much.
Oh, man.
But you should check out Dragon Quest 11.
That's such a sales pitch. You should check out Dragon Quest 11 to find out.
Nice. It sounds like pretty good there. The story that we're looking at here, obviously you don't want to spoil like you just said, but can you give us a little look into what we're looking at here?
Absolutely. So this is, depending on how much grinding or kind of playing around in the world that you've done, would take about 6 to 10 hours to get to in the game. It's still pretty early considering how massive the game is. I played an earlier version of the English build. It took me about 95 hours to complete without touching almost any of the side quests. Man. So there's a whole lot of game there. At this point, you don't have your full party. They're still building up. You're still getting adventurers to join you. And
here comes.
There's
a horse race.
Yep, there it is.
Yes.
There's a mini game.
I love mini games. It's just, I mean, it allows other players that like different kinds of things in their video games to really get enjoyment out of so many different stuff. If you just love RPG and combat, you can do that. But if maybe you want to explore a little more in the game, you have horse racing. What other mini games are there?
There's crafting, but it's not just crafting. There's an actual mini game component to it, which is a ton of fun. There's we haven't talked much about it, but since the game did come out in Japan, a lot of people know there's a casino.
Ooh,
That's all I'll say at this point.
A little bit of gambling? Maybe?
There's a little bit of gambling.
I was going to say no, gambling never hurt anyone, but that's actually not true. So I'm not going to say that. But I'm guessing you get some really cool items too, not just like, an extra potion or something like that, but you actually get some good gear, I'm guessing later.
There are
too.
certain items you can only get through the minigames.
That's what I'm talking about.
Nice.
That's
Oh man, so that's just gonna add another 50 hours to it though, right?
Yeah, you could just lose yourself in the casino or in the horse races, trying to get your best times. And there are tiers to the horse races. Right now we're in the very beginning, the Bronze Cup, that goes on to Silver Cup and on and on.
Dominating the Bronze Cup too.
Killing it, first place.
Another new feature that's been added to this is the photo mode.
Yes, the first-person photo mode, exactly. That wasn't in the Japanese version. We released it here. It's really nice if you want to get a better look at the environment, better look at the monsters. You can also remove the HUD in that mode if you want to take screenshots.
Cool, and then you have a little album that you can look at. Is there a way to export those pictures at all?
It's through, if you're doing it on the PS4, you can use the PS4 share functionality.
Sweet.
Nice, I can spam my friends with photos.
There you go.
Which I plan on doing actually a lot of. I have to wonder, for people who are new to Dragon Quest, in RPGs, sometimes you have a serious look at it, and it's a serious-looking game, or even a smaller, less detailed look at it. With this kind of game, it has the appearance done by Akira Toriyama. It still has a serious tone to the game, though, right?
Absolutely. And that's one of the things where we just revealed this new piece of key art, our new box art for the Western version of the game, where it does kind of touch on some of the darker themes, this whole aspect of light versus dark, which when you first look at it, you might not think something so bright and colorful has some of these darker themes, but it absolutely does. And the development team and the writers have done a phenomenal job of balancing the sense of humor with the darker themes and the more dramatic aspects.
I just saw a little note there that says that cows can predict the weather.
Of course.
Is there a lot of
absolutely.
what other fun small things are we going to be able to find in this game?
You haven't asked cows about the weather report before?
Yeah, I mean, anytime you need to know the weather, you go up to a cow, they tell you, is it going to rain, is it going to be sunny? There's a lot of little things that you'll come across in the game.
I didn't do that.
I love that you saw that, by the way.
Do they move?
There's a lot of Easter eggs that tie into to past versions of Dragon Quest. So if you know the series well and you've been a fan for many years, you're going to pick up on those things. But if you're a first timer, you've never touched Dragon Quest, you're not going to miss out on anything. You'll have just as good of a time. And even though Dragon Quest XI is the 11th entry in the mainline series, it's the perfect starting point for a newcomer. The story is entirely new, the characters are entirely new, so this is what we feel is the best possible jumping off point for someone who's never touched the franchise before.
That's awesome. I mean, to see an all new game be able to pull old and new players alike. Some of the things that maybe old players would be interested in, though, do you guys have monster recruitment?
We do not have monster recruitment, but we have lots of monsters that you can go. I was going to use a stronger term than kill, but
you already said it.
Murder, beat, defeat,
persuade,
battle, persuade.
To stay down.
Yeah. You have a conversation. You've been causing some havoc, troubling this town. Actually, the part of the story that we're in now, there's this massive monster that's been causing some trouble. So the prince of the Sultanate of Gallipolis is headed out to defeat the monster.
Have a conversation.
Yeah, have a conversation. See if you can take him. Just convince him to maybe not be so evil.
With a game this big, do you have certain areas that, how much of it is accessible at once? Do you have a thing where you can't come this way yet, the bridge is broken for a while kind of thing?
Exactly. And when you first start out and you leave your hometown for the first time, it's somewhat linear. It wants to guide you and get you set up in the story and help you understand how the world works. At that point, it starts branching and areas start opening up. And eventually you get to a point where now you have access to this entire map and you're set out on this goal, and it's up to you to really kind of determine where to go and what to accomplish at that point. And it's a big world. I mean, with over 100 hours of content. There's a lot to see.
And I saw that you guys have quick movement where you can just teleport from one spot to another, so that'll help it. Definitely the traditional JRPG style right there, in case you don't want to have to run through the entire giant map.
Exactly, and we call it Zoom.
Zoom.
Zoom is our fast travel.
Okay, good to know.
I know about that. That's actually really cool.
So with it coming to America, we're getting 2 editions, correct?
Correct.
What are those editions?
The first edition is the kind of basic standard price SKU, $59.99. That's the Edition of Light. It's our launch SKU, or launch unit, so it will be out there on store shelves right at launch, but it'll be in limited quantities. That comes with some exclusive DLC, and it also comes with a reversible cover. So it has our Western key art on the front, and on the back side of it, you can reverse it, and it has Akira Toriyama's artwork, the artwork that was used on the Japanese version of the game.
I like that.
Yeah.
And the second edition is the Edition of Light, and that's the big one. That's the
Edition of Lost Time.
I
was going to say,
thank you.
I thought, didn't you just say
Adrian was going to call me out, but he was being polite.